So it was day 2 of testimony in the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking trial. His ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, took the stand with some really disturbing testimony. Sunny, you were back in the courtroom yesterday. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, it was very emotional testimony. She's due to give birth June 1st, and so she was very pregnant.
Whose baby is it?
It's her. She's married. She has 3 children. Her husband was actually in the courtroom listening to this very disturbing testimony. I was seated right behind her husband, and you could see his hands were sort of balled up, and he was trying to contain himself to hear what happened to his wife. So she described about 10 years of emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. And her participation in what they called sessions during a freak-off, which would be sex with an escort. And what she also described is that she met him when she was 19 and he was 37.
So young.
So we're talking about a huge, huge age difference. And a power differential. And I will also say that she said several times that she didn't want to do it. But what I think the jury...
She didn't want to do what?
She didn't want to engage in sex with these escorts. But he introduced this to her when she was about 20 years old. Within 6 months to a year of dating, he told her that his fantasy was voyeurism. He wanted to see this happen. And she explained that she did it for 10 years because when you love someone, you want to make them happy and you don't want to make them angry. And so she actually arranged for the escort.
It's funny how people have definitions of love.
Yeah. So she arranged for the escort. She arranged for their travel. She paid for the deposits for the escorts. She purchased clothing from sex stores. She purchased baby oil. She took drugs. In text messages, she said, "I want to freak off so badly." And she explains that she never explicitly said no. Now, what I saw as a former sex crimes prosecutor is classic victim, survivor, sexual grooming, right? He started pushing her boundaries and trauma bonded. But in watching the jury, I also saw some of the jurors just not understanding how she didn't just leave. And so I think that in order for the prosecution to prove this case, and it's a heavily male jury, there are 12 men and about 8 women. There are 6 alternates. I think they're going to have an expert describe and explain that this is what happens in this kind of relationship, because I saw it clear as day. I don't think the average person would see that.
Well, Sunny, wouldn't you say, as someone saying, because I love you, like a lot of that is kind of like the Stockholm syndrome of what she was going through at such a young age. But one question that kind of came to mind is, I know that one of the reasons someone like her would not come forward is he filmed these, you know, in a variety of places. And what bigger threat do you have when you've been violated and assaulted, or, you know, or non-consensually participating in things called freak-offs, when you say, "I have the video, I could release the video"?
He filmed
Yeah, but that would have hurt him too.
No, he's not. He's watching.
He's watching.
She's in the videos, and there's some, you can't talk about it, but there's some despicable things coming out in court that were done to her and done with her. And I think that my question, Sunny, is, will the jurors see any of these videos? Because I think videos, just like the abuse video that was allowed to be shown, when you see this, you can let people gauge for themselves. Will the jurors see these videos?
There was argument after the jury left because there are some news outlets that wanted access to those videos. And so that was that was denied because they would be re-victimized if, God forbid, that got leaked out to the public. I will say that the jurors and the attorneys will get to see those videos, and that's significant.
I've got to say, one of the things that is horrifying to me, as it was with Harvey Weinstein, as it was with O.J. Simpson, as it's been with other cases, is how many people it takes enabling this man for him to do this for decades.
There were many.
And so, you know, you hear about how this was happening in hotels.
It went on since the 90s.
And
over 10 years.
And I think it's got to be a wake-up call for us as an American culture, that when we see something, we say something, that we can't, because somebody's powerful, because they're rich, because they're famous, because they're scary, be silent, because, you know, because of the silence of so many people who knew something and suspected something. This woman and others were put through hell for 10 years. And I'm gonna say that I remember many years ago, maybe like 20 years ago, I was in the Florida Keys staying at a hotel. And I heard the woman in the room next to me being beaten up. And I wanted to call the police, and my ex told me not to get involved. And it still haunts me today. And so I have made a promise to myself, and I urge others to do it, just as we're hearing about Cassidy's testimony, that if we suspect something, if we hear something, we've got to talk.
You have nothing to lose. They don't know who it
Can I
is.
just mention, you and I were talking about this last night because I was following just the transcripts. I wasn't there. And I was starting to, as a layperson, feel like, oh gosh, she's not going to be able to convince the jury that this wasn't consensual and she wasn't participating. But I'm reminded that victims of domestic violence, it usually takes them 7 attempts before they even get away from their abuser. And 75% of domestic violence-related homicides happen upon separation, meaning the time that you try to leave is the most dangerous time for you.
Do you remember that video we all saw of the
That was
hotel?
her leaving a violent
She was trying to leave, but she went back to him after that hotel incident. And so you're absolutely right. And to Anna, your point, there has been testimony that his assistants, his security guards, people that worked for him brought drugs to Cassie, brought baby oil, brought lubricant, brought money. So someone certainly in his circle
I assure you, I mean, this happened in a lot of hotels. This wasn't just this one hotel in the video we saw.
About 15 hotels.
Okay, staying in a hotel here in New York.
5 different states.
I remember I told you this at the time. There was a hotel worker who told me that they would stay there, and that they all suspected horrible things were going on in that room. So I am sure this happened in many places, many cities, many years.
She outlined,
and people were very silent.
She outlined L.A., New York, Atlanta,
But
Miami,
this is why,
Ibiza.
to your point, why you have places like the Retreat, which I like to do work for. Because women who are in that abusive situation need to go somewhere where the guy does not know where they are and get all of the help that they can. These places are they're saints. The Retreat, ladies. And you can stay up on news, keep up on news about this trial with 2020 and ABC's audio podcast, Bad Rap, the Case Against Diddy, wherever you get your podcast.
So we ran out of time during that first segment when we were talking about the Diddy trial, but I think it's really important for people to remember that you're innocent until proven guilty. So Sean Diddy Combs has pleaded not guilty to all charges and has denied all sexual assault allegations.